Hello and welcome to today's math lesson. Today we're going to be covering lesson 4, or module 4, lesson number 2. And your learning target is going to be, I will be able to determine slope and y-intercept. So two main concepts for today are slope and y-intercept. So if we think about slope, we have already been doing slope. And slope is when we talk about change in y over change in x. So sometimes we grab two ordered pairs and we take the two y values and we subtract them over x1 minus x2. So remember, we write slope as a ratio and we do change in y over change in x. And another way that we've done slope is counting rise over run. So if we're just given two ordered pairs, we use the slope formula. If we're given a graph, we use rise over run. All right, so in this one, we're going to be talking about how to find the y-intercept. So the y-coordinate of the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. So if we pick something like this, and we have a line that goes through, this blue line is crossing the y-axis at a specific point. That point would be right here. And what is that ordered pair? Well, we're not going left or right at all, so that x value is 0, and then we went up 1, 2, 3, 4. So we would say that the y-intercept of this blue equation, the y-intercept, is 4. If they asked you to write it as an ordered pair, it would be 0, 4. So look at this last sentence here. It says the x-coordinate of this point is always 0. So whenever we write ordered pairs, remember it's x, comma, y. So this x-coordinate is 0. So here we have another line, and this line is crossing the y-axis. So let's see, this is your y-axis. Where is this black line crossing? Oh, it's crossing right there. So that point, it is not going left or right at all, so it's 0, comma, negative 3. Notice this x value is 0, so the ordered pair would be 0, comma, negative 3. All right, let's try one more. So this line right here is crossing the y-axis, and what is the y-intercept? Well, this is our y-axis, so where is this black line crossing? And it's right here at that point. So now we have to count. It does not go left or right, so it's going to be 0, comma, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 5. Now sometimes they just want to know what is the y-intercept, and you can say that the y-intercept, I abbreviate it like that oftentimes, so the y-intercept is 5. Now this particular way wanted us to write it as an ordered pair, so then we would say 0, 5. Noticing again, what that last sentence said is that the x value is always 0. Okay, so what is the x value when you have the ordered pair of the y-intercept? And on the last three examples, that x value is always 0. So if we put a 0 in here for x, we have 3 times 0 minus 5. So y is going to be equal to 0 minus 5. So the y-intercept is negative 5. Now if they want us to write that as an ordered pair, what did we put in for x? We put in a 0. And what did we get out for y? We got a negative 5. So it would be the ordered pair, 0, negative 5. All right, in the second one, again, the x value is always 0. So in place of x, I'm going to put a 0. So what is 1/2, negative 1/2 times 0? It's 0. 0 plus 12. So this y-intercept is 12. What would that ordered pair be? 0, 12. Now let's see if we can look at these two examples, and let's go back to this equation that they gave us. See how it's y equals 3x minus 5. We're going to be learning in the next slides here that this is called slope-intercept form. And if we look at this last number here, do you see how this is a negative 5? And what did we get over here? And you see how this right here is a 12? And what did we get for the y value? So can anybody guess, looking at this last equation without doing any work, can you tell me what the y-intercept is? The y-intercept is, drum roll please, and yep, we're going to get 5.8. So we could write that equation, or the ordered pair is 0, 5.8. All right, investigating slope and y-intercept. So we just talked about the y-intercept, and that if we look at this graph, you can tell that it's going through this point right here, okay, 4. And we said, look at that. And what do we end up with this in equation? And we end up with the 4. So step 1 wants us to find the slope, and they give us 2 points here. One is at 0, 4, and one is at negative 3, 6. So remember, when we're finding slope, we have the change in y on top. So my y values are 6 and 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. On the bottom then, I put my change in x. So my x values are negative 3 minus 0. So negative 3 minus 0 is a negative 3. Now remember, mathematicians are going to want us to put that negative in the top. So we're going to write negative 2 over 3. Now, if you go back and look at that equation, what number do we have right here in front of x? Negative 2 over 3. So what we end up with is an equation. So y equals, we always have y equals when we're writing an equation, blank x plus blank. And what happens is you guys found out that this point right here ends up being the y-intercept. And now, what did we just find out here? By finding the slope, did we find out that that is the number that's in front of x? So the slope ends up in front of x. So this is what we end up with, is this equation. This equation is a big, huge equation that we're going to be using, and it is called slope-intercept form. And the number that's in front of x, so you see in black, y equals, and then we got a blue m. That blue m is the thing that changes. So when I write mine, and they ask me to write equation, I write y equals blank x plus blank, because I'm filling in this number, or this blank, with a number that represents the slope of the equation. And I'm going to fill in the second blank with the number that represents the y-intercept. All right, so let's look at example number 1 here. And example number 1, they're talking about a sales person selling phones is paid a minimum weekly salary and a commission for each phone sold. So whether they sell 0 phones or 2 phones or 15 phones, they get paid an initial value. So just for coming to work, they get paid. And if they sell no phones, they still get a base salary or an initial value. So if they want us to write an equation here, what we're looking for is something like y equals blank x plus blank. So we need the slope here, and we need the y-intercept here. So y-intercept, remember the y-intercept, what is that x value? That x value is always 0. So in a graph or a chart or something, if I have something that says 0, comma, any number, this number will be my y-intercept. So let's look at this chart right here. And if I go 40, 30, 20, 10, keep that pattern going. And what number would I have here? 0. So whatever number I get over here, that's going to end up being my y-intercept. So if I take 930, I got to find out what this pattern is. What is this changing by every time? So let's take 930 and let's subtract 780 from that. And I get, so let's see, 930 minus 780, and I get minus 150. So now if I take 780 and subtract 150, do I get the next number, 630? So what we're doing is we're subtracting 150 to keep that pattern going. So 480 minus 150, and this number that would be right here would be 330. That's the initial value. So this person, the salesperson, gets paid $330 just for going to work without selling any phones. But now they get more money every time they sell a phone or sell a phone. All right, now we're going to be working on the slope part of this equation here. So remember, to find the slope, we can take any two ordered pairs. And so what they did is they took this first ordered pair and the second ordered pair here, and they found the slope. And they got 15. And then they took the second ordered pair, the 20, and the 30, and they found the slope, and they got 15. And then they did it again one more time from 30 to 40, and they found that slope, and they got 15. So did we have a constant rate of change? And we did. So that is the number that goes here. The 15 is the constant rate of change. Now here's another way, instead of doing this, is we can do change in y over change in x. So what is this y value? Here's your y values. What is this y value changing by? 150. What are the x values changing by? 10. So what's 150 divided by 10? And you get 15. So that's another way that you can find slope. Okay, I think we have a your turn here down at the bottom. So I want to run through these and then we'll get you going on your homework. So find the slope and the y-intercept. All right, slope and y-intercept. And it doesn't matter what order you do these problems in, if you find the slope or the y-intercept first or second. But remember, to find slope, we can take two ordered pairs, and it doesn't matter which two you take, and then do the change. So if I go from this point to this point, remember, y goes on top. So I'm going to do 42 minus 22 because my y's go on top. And then on the bottom, if I do 42 minus 22, I have to do the same order. 6 minus 2. So let's see, 42 minus 22 is 20. 6 minus 2 is 4. So 20 divided by 4 is 5. So the slope for this first chart is 5. Now, what is the y-intercept? Now, remember, to find the y-intercept, we need that x value to be 0. So, can I keep this pattern going so that I end up with the 0 on top? 8, 6, 4, 2. Well, the next number would be a 0 if we kept that pattern going. And it looks like on the bottom, they're subtracting 10s every time. So if you subtract 10 from 22, you get 12. So this is now going to represent your y-intercept. So the y-intercept is going to be 12. Now, one thing further to write this equation, they didn't ask us to do it, but if we did, it would be y equals blank x plus blank. So my slope is going to be 5, and my y-intercept will be 12. One other thing that I like to do when I find my slope is I like to do change in y. So change in y over change in x. So what are the y's changing by? 10s. What are the x's changing by? 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and that's exactly what we got. Okay, let's go do number 2 here. So finding the slope. So take any two ordered pairs, so I can just use these first two if I wanted. The big trick is to make sure that you get the y values on top. So 15 minus 8, I'm using the first two ordered pairs, 15 minus 8, and then 2 minus 1. So 15 minus 8 is 7, 2 minus 1 is 1, so my slope is 7. All right, now we need to find that y-intercept. So to find that y-intercept, remember I want that x value to be 0. 4, 3, 2, 1, my next number would be a 0. Now what's the pattern here? From 29 to 22. Remember, you can just grab your calculator and take 29 minus 22, and they are subtracting 7. So 8 minus 7 is 1. So the y-intercept is the ordered pair 0, 1, or just 1. Now I know they didn't ask for the equation, but the equation would be y equals 7x. The slope is 7. 7x plus 1.